serene evening at home with my son unexpectedly led me to ponder the very essence of intimacy, boundaries, and love. If you are a mother, this feeling is likely familiar to you. Your child embodies your entire universe, the motivation that drives you to rise with the dawn, the sole element that prevents you from experiencing emptiness when it feels as though the world is aligned against you. My name is Olivia Miller. At 44 years old, I work as an emergency room nurse. I've been divorced for 15 years, and my son Liam is the sole person I've ever truly had in my life. At 22, he attends a nearby college and possesses a maturity and groundedness that I find comforting. If in being truthful, I likely lean on him more than is wise. Our bond is quite intimate. That feels a bit too intimate, if you ask me. Those around us frequently remark that we share a bond akin to that of sisters. They truly intend it as a compliment. I once shared that belief until one chilly night in late October died. Liam, weary from his lap shift, and I casually remarked, "You can lie down on my bed. It's warmer than your room." I can't quite pinpoint what stirred me from my slumber in the dead of night. It wasn't the sound. It was the sensation of a familiar breath softly brushing against the nape of my neck. His arms encircled me just as they had in our childhood days. Everything was as it should be. Initially, it didn't seem that way, yet there was an unmistakable sense of difference. Liam's breathing held a certain quality that was hard to ignore, measured and intentional. There was a quality to his embrace that transcended mere hugging. It was a touch that held, a grip that lingered, a pause filled with anticipation. And I came to the unsettling realization that Liam wasn't sleeping, and I found myself questioning whether I was lying next to a child at all. This may leave you feeling perplexed, perhaps even frustrated or empathetic. Yet, if you choose to continue reading, I urge you to stay with me until the conclusion, for this narrative is anything but easy to digest. It unfolds as a narrative of boundaries pushed to their limits, exploring the complexities of love that takes a wrong turn, and revealing how silence can resonate as the most profound cry within a family. I once perceived my life as a tapestry of stitches, each one a temporary fix, yet sufficient to prevent everything from unraveling entirely. In my role as an ER nurse at a quaint hospital nestled in Colorado, I had grown accustomed to the art of healing, approaching each situation with a steady hand and meticulous care. Yet, the fragments within me remained unstitched, untouched by anyone's hands. My marriage ended when Liam was just 7 years old. My husband Daniel had his flaws, but he wasn't inherently a bad person. He simply vanished into thin air. On a fateful day, he shut the door behind him, uttering that he required time for contemplation, and then departed the state, never glancing back. There was no scandal, no shouting, only a profound silence. A silence so profound that it renders the forgotten utterly unseen. My relationship with my parents was never particularly close. My sister resided in Oregon, her words few and far between. It was simply Liam and me, alone together. When a child loses a father and a mother grapples with the challenge of fulfilling two roles, what develops between them transcends a mere maternal bond. It represents a connection forged in the crucible of endurance. It's the moment when our gazes lock and the world fades away, leaving only us. Since his early years, Liam has exhibited a remarkable sense of calmness. He seldom sheds tears. He refrains from complaining. He recognizes the weariness that settles in after a long night shift. He has a knack for whipping up breakfast when I lose track of time in the morning. Once, I found myself awakening at the hour of 1 a.m. He arrived nearly an hour late to his class. He gazed at me, a smile spreading across his face, and said, "It's okay, Mom. I have my first gym class today." We exchanged nearly all aspects of our lives. Dining experiences, engaging dialogues, brief weekend getaways. I once believed that was truly remarkable. Now every mother shares a midnight laugh with her son over a silly reality show. Upon embarking on his college journey, Liam selected an institution situated a mere 20 minutes from his family home. I inquired of him why he opted not to select an alternative location, perhaps a more favorable one. He simply shrugged and replied, "I don't understand why we need to go so far." I teased, "Are you worried that if I leave, you won't manage to get by?" He smiled, as if buoyed by a gentle breeze. "I hold no fear of you, Ma. I simply cannot imagine a life devoid of your presence." I find myself pondering whether it was true happiness nestled within my heart, or perhaps something entirely different. Unfamiliar, throbbing, followed by stillness. Liam spent 4 years of his college experience at home. There are no gatherings, no significant others to introduce. He attended school, juggled a part-time job, and returned home each evening to share dinner with me. Each week, we indulged in our cherished movie night ritual, donning our comfiest pajamas, crafting buttery popcorn, and immersing ourselves in classic films. I once believed we were a team, yet reflecting on it now, perhaps we existed like a couple without even recognizing it. Our home was nestled in a serene neighborhood in South Denver. Time-worn homes with sloping roofs, inviting wooden porches, and charming white picket fences stand sentinel over lawns that are just vibrant enough to embody the essence of American tranquility. The house to the right was Robert, a widower in his mid-50s. He stood tall, his deep voice resonating with warmth, always accompanied by a welcoming smile. 2 years after the passing of his wife from cancer, he settled in, accompanied by his golden retriever, Scout, and his ritual of tending to the plants every Sunday morning. Robert was the sort of person who was impossible to dislike. He understood the delicate balance of speech and silence. When my heater malfunctioned, he arrived to repair it. During the storm, he sent a message that read, "Are you two all right?" As I settled onto the porch in solitude, he approached with 2 steaming cups of black coffee in hand. "Shall we take a seat here?" We had never been on a date. There was no flirting, no physical touch, yet we were not unfamiliar with one another. On certain evenings, the 3 of us, Liam, Robert, and gathered for dinner, engaging in lively discussions about the latest news in literature, or sharing amusing tales of how Scout had managed to chew up her slippers. Yet, Liam consistently maintained a particular distance from Robert. He was courteous and kind, yet there lingered a subtle chill in his gaze, as though he were assessing him from a distance. I once inquired, "What are your thoughts on Robert?" Liam responded promptly, "Fine, just one word, nothing more." I noticed it, yet it slipped my mind until a winter evening when the heater began to falter once more, and Robert arrived at my door with his familiar repair kit in hand. I welcomed him inside. Liam sat in the kitchen, absorbed in his phone, yet the moment Robert entered, the air shifted palpably around us. As I moved to fetch him a towel, Robert spoke softly, "Liam doesn't like me." I chuckled. "No, has just quiet." Robert nodded. yet the expression in his eyes, a fleeting gaze down the hall where Liam had vanished, sent a chill through me, though I couldn't quite grasp the reason. From that moment forward, I found myself increasingly aware of Liam's gaze each time Robert paid a visit. Not anger, not hatred, but something more profound, something that grips tightly. It was as though Liam sensed that I was losing something to another person. Initially, I considered the notion absurd. Yet, as the days unfolded, my certainty began to wane. I started to observe the subtle details. The manner in which Liam drew his chair nearer to mine as Robert settled beside him. His hand rested gently on my shoulder, just enough for me to sense its presence, and Robert sensed it as well. After Robert departed, I inquired, "What are you up to?" Liam gave a nonchalant shrug. "I believe you can manage just fine on your own, without assistance from others." I chuckled, yet a feeling within me was awakening. The evening unfolded like any typical autumn night. The air outside carried a slight chill, just enough to justify a light jacket on the porch, but not quite enough to compel one to slam the door against the biting wind. Scout Robert's dog let out a few barks before sinking to the floor, its breathing steady and calm. Liam had just returned from his part-time job, a 4-hour shift at the school library. His eyes were heavy, and his voice carried the weight of exhaustion, his back slightly hunched under the burden of fatigue. "Have you had a chance to eat?" I inquired as he entered. "Just half a sandwich. The remainder is somewhere in the car." Liam let out a soft laugh as he removed his backpack and set it by the door. All he wanted was to lie down for a few moments. His head felt like it was on the verge of bursting. I gazed at my son's face, and a wave of maternal instinct washed over me, yearning to cradle him as I once did when he was just 10, trembling at the sound of thunder. "Your room must be chilly," I remarked, moving towards the closet to retrieve a warm, thick blanket. "If you'd like, you can lie down on my bed." A heater hums softly in the background, casting a comforting warmth. Liam offered a subtle nod, his lips curling into a faint smile, words unneeded. The smile that I had always perceived as light as the wind. He approached my room, moving slowly, as though each step carried a fresh wave of fatigue from his legs. I trailed behind, draping the blanket over him as he settled down. The room enveloped me in silence, a sanctuary devoid of bright lights. This lamp cast a soft dim glow against the wall, crafting a hazy ambience where time appeared to stand still. Liam lay on his side, his gaze fixed on the wall. The blanket enveloped his tall frame, a stark contrast to the skinny child he had once been. I settled on the edge of the bed, leaning against the headboard, and pulled out my phone to sift through a handful of work messages. The atmosphere in the room slowly grew warmer, not solely due to the heater's efforts. I can't pinpoint the exact moment I drifted off. Perhaps it was when the phone softly landed on my lap. Or maybe it was when Liam's breathing settled into a steady rhythm, reminiscent of a lullaby. Perhaps it was my own need for support that mirrored his. I stirred not to the noise, but to the sensation. A soft breath at my back, a tender arm encircling my waist. Neither constricted nor rigid, simply present. My initial response wasn't one of fear. It was tranquility. Liam had cradled me in this way during his childhood. On tempestuous nights, when he would enter my room, tears streaming in the shadows, I would whisper, "Just lie here with me for a moment." He would curl up against me like a small kitten, his arms encircling my waist, drifting into a peaceful slumber, as if fear had never touched him. I stood still, enveloped in the comforting embrace of my son's arms. My thoughts lingered in that delicate space between dreams and reality. It wasn't until I grasped this fully that I understood Liam wasn't asleep. His breathing maintained an unsettling rhythm, too even for comfort. There was no hint of slouching from the figure, lost in deep slumber. The silence wrapped around them, thickening the air with each passing moment. I swallowed my voice, gentle as the whispering breeze. Are you not in slumber? A moment of silence, followed by Liam's voice. A soft murmur, tinged with timidity. Merely a touch in this manner. I find myself in a state of improved well-being. I tensed momentarily, then made an effort to ease into the situation as though it were entirely routine. It felt as though this was the same boy I had cradled in my arms during his third-grade days. Yet my heart quickened with each passing moment. Not from fear, but from a sense of uncertainty regarding the true nature of what was unfolding. Liam's arms remained gentle, yet within that stillness lay a sense of control, as if he cradled something delicate that he feared might slip away. I gently shut my eyes, remained silent. Perhaps I ought to turn and say, Liam, you need to head to your room, but my throat felt parched and the words lodged in the depths of my chest, where something gentle was breathing steadily. We remained in that position for a few more minutes, perhaps 10, perhaps 30. Time slipped away from me. Only the gentle hum of the heater and the soft tick-tock of the clock on the wall filled the silence, until Liam subtly shifted a bit closer. Liam made a subtle movement, a mere few inches, yet it resonated within me. His body edged nearer, radiating warmth, while his breath whispered against the nape of my neck. Not a breeze, but a steady, rhythmic pulse, almost melodic. I gently shut my eyes. I felt an overwhelming urge to keep my gaze fixed ahead, paralyzed by an unshakable fear of what lay behind me. It wasn't fear of Liam that held me back. It was the daunting image of his gaze that I couldn't bring myself to confront. For if I was correct, if that gaze had transformed from a child's innocent admiration of his mother to that of a man struggling to contain a forbidden truth, then everything would shift irrevocably. Liam's voice brushed against my ear, a soft whisper. Mom, are you okay? I merely nodded. The question lingered, a delicate thread caught in the eye of a tempest whirling within me. His hand squeezed gently, neither hard nor forceful, yet just enough for me to sense that this was no longer an unconscious embrace. It served a distinct purpose. I gulped down the question that was bubbling up inside me. What compels you to take this action? Yet, my throat constricted. I made an effort to uplift the atmosphere. Just take a break, I urged, my voice echoing with an unfamiliar resonance. Liam remained silent, yet he stayed perfectly still. His hand lingered on my arm. His thumb glided softly over the back of my hand, a tender motion that felt instinctive, as if we were familiar with this intimacy, as if it were a ritual we had shared countless times before. I kept my hand there, not out of desire, but from uncertainty about when the line between what was right and what was perilous began to blur. As the minutes slipped by, I sensed myself gradually detaching from my identity as a mother. A nameless emotion enveloped me, creeping in like a shadow. To name it would be to ignite a fire in my chest, a heat I feared to confront. I focused on the ceiling, straining to hear the wind outside, searching for something to anchor me to reality, yet everything felt distant and unattainable. Then Liam leaned in closer and whispered, "Have you ever experienced something so undeniably right that it seemed impossible for it to be wrong?" For a fleeting moment, the question caused my heart to halt. The truth resonated in each and every word. Liam's words weren't born from mere curiosity. He spoke those words with conviction, driven by a deep-seated belief and a genuine feeling. I remained silent as Liam's voice faltered, almost breaking under the weight of his words. "There is no one else in my life." "Wait, you're aware of that? You have been my everything." That sentence struck with surgical precision, piercing the very core of my being, for it held an undeniable truth. Indeed, that's true. I was the one who had unwittingly fostered that reliance. I was the one who permitted this relationship to flourish without constraints. It was I who experienced a sense of tranquility when Liam chose not to leave. Now, I found myself facing the consequences of my actions, not through reprimands nor through missteps, but by sensing a disconnection, the kind that softens the boundaries. I pivoted with deliberate slowness, mindful of the fragile surroundings. Liam's gaze was fixed on me, devoid of sleepiness, stripped of innocence. The gaze of an individual yearning for an elusive desire, shrouded in mystery, even to themselves. I gazed at him, my eyes lingering on his face, lost in thought. Then I spoke softly, "Liam, it's time for you to head to your room." My tone was neither angry nor trembling. It was a gentle yet firm nudge towards departure. Liam remained still for several moments. At last, he withdrew his hand, rose from the bed, and remained silent, casting one last glance my way. In that fleeting moment, I could see the pain intertwined with regret reflected in his eyes. The door shut softly behind him, as though it had never been disturbed. I found myself lying there, gazing up at the ceiling. My heart raced, thundering against my ribcage, as if it might burst free at any moment. I held back tears, my body steady, yet deep within, I sensed a stirring that refused to settle down again. The following, I found myself awake earlier than I typically would be. Not due to work commitments or an early shift, but rather because sleep eluded me. Honestly, I couldn't tell if I had managed to sleep at all after Liam walked out of the room last night. Once the door clicked shut, reality faded into a haze, leaving me suspended in a liminal space, caught between wakefulness and a dreamlike reverie for what felt like an eternity. As I descended to the kitchen, the familiar ritual of brewing coffee began to unfold. My hand trembled ever so slightly as I unscrewed the jar of powder, not due to the chill in the air, but because the memory of Liam's breath from that embrace lingered vividly in my mind. The aroma of coffee enveloped the kitchen, a cherished ritual, a means to restore the familiar cadence of existence. Yet today, even the aroma of coffee failed to bridge the emptiness within my heart. Footsteps resonated from the stairs, gentle yet unwavering. Liam descended the stairs, clad in a worn gray hoodie, his hair tousled and carefree. He entered the kitchen as he did on countless other days. Yet, in that moment, our gazes intertwined. An unfamiliar sensation washed over me. No evasion, no remorse, yet no purity. Only silence remains. The silence held a knowing quality, as if it were poised, anticipating my response to the unfolding events. "Good morning," I began, striving to maintain a nonchalant tone. "Hello, Mom," Liam greeted as he took a seat at the table. "The aroma of the coffee is simply delightful." I set the cup before him. As I extended my hand to pass it over, my fingers inadvertently grazed his. In that instant, I retracted my hand with a speed that rivaled a telegraph's message. Liam cast a glance my way, a flicker of surprise crossing his features, yet he remained silent. He lifted the cup to his lips, his gaze unwaveringly fixed on me. "Did you sleep well?" I inquired, maintaining an air of nonchalance. "Fine." The response was brief, yet after a moment's hesitation he continued, "What about Mom?" I let out a small chuckle, finding it amusing that I was having a bit of trouble sleeping. Liam nodded, refraining from further inquiries, yet I sensed he grasped the reason. That shared understanding lingered in the kitchen, mingling with the aroma of coffee and the soft glow of dawn. Breakfast passed in quietude. It was quite typical for two individuals who had shared their lives for over 2 decades. Yet, today, the silence felt foreign, devoid of its usual solace. The wall stood slender and fresh, poised in anticipation of a force that would shatter its stillness. Following breakfast, Liam rose to clear the dishes, an act he seldom performed. He mentioned he was stepping out for a while, his back turned to me, most likely wandering through the school grounds. I gave a slight nod. Absolutely no issue at all. Simply take a moment to unwind. Liam glanced over his shoulder, a flicker of unspoken words dancing in his eyes. But then he hesitated, silence enveloping the moment. He casually grabbed the keys, slipped on his coat, and stepped out of the house. As the door clicked shut, I exhaled, releasing the tension that had built within me. My chest felt as though it had been unstrung, a sensation of vulnerability and rawness coursing through me. I reclined at the table, my gaze fixed on the chair he had occupied. What transpired last night was simply unacceptable. Everything appeared to be in order. No one had overstepped any limits. No words had been spoken that crossed any boundaries. Yet every detailed gaze, the exhale, the embrace, the stillness carried significance. I found it impossible to feign ignorance. What frightened me the most was the unsettling realization that I felt no disgust. Liam didn't strike me as disgusting. I did not perceive myself as repulsive. Confusion washed over me, guilt gnawed at my insides, and an overwhelming sense of loneliness enveloped me. It felt as though I had been isolated with my son for an eternity. We had relied on one another excessively. I had deceived myself into believing that a strong bond between mother and son would shield him from the harsh realities of the world beyond. Perhaps I had fashioned a confined realm, a protective cocoon. What emerged from it was no longer the child I had nurtured. Liam was a man, and that man began to regard me with a new perspective. For the next 3 days, Liam appeared to be a different version of himself. He wasn't behaving in a way that was unexpected for him. In stark contrast, Liam executed every action with precision, bordering on an unsettling level of propriety. Continuing to share dinner with me, inquiring about my shift, and tidying up the dishes. Yet, there was an undeniable quality to his gaze, that lingering look that sent my heart racing. What perplexed me the most was that I found myself anticipating that gaze. I caught myself lingering in front of the mirror, contemplating whether I appeared weary, pondering if Liam still saw me with the same warmth he had that day. A fragment of my being, soothed by solitude, was starting to perceive my son's gaze as a source of solace. I loathed it, yet I couldn't refute its existence. On Thursday night, I approached Liam's door, intending to request his assistance with his laptop. A Danieler of little significance. I believed the Wi-Fi was down. Liam settled at his desk, clad in a white t-shirt, his hair still damp from the shower. The air was infused with the clean scent of soap, mingling subtly with the earthy aroma of the wooden bookcase. All was serene, excessively tranquil. "Mom's laptop is down," I remarked, maintaining a steady tone. Liam pivoted his chair, a subtle nod accompanying the movement. "Lower it down here so I can take a look." I passed him the phone while he stood beside me, his fingers gliding over the keyboard with a practiced ease. My gaze inadvertently landed on that hand. The hand that once clasped mine as we navigated the street in our childhood, now transformed big, strong, and steady. I recall those moments when your frustration echoed through the room, a vivid reminder of how much we relied on the internet. I offered a gentle smile, attempting to evoke a sense of nostalgia. Liam's smile was warm, yet his gaze turned piercing as he locked eyes with me. His head tilted, the light from the screen casting a glow in his eyes. "Now, it's you who requires my assistance," Liam murmured. I nodded in silence. He rose to his feet, placing the repaired laptop in my hands, yet he didn't retreat. We were mere inches away from each other. "Did you hear what Liam mentioned? At school, my friends believed you were my sister." I chuckled, yet within me a chill lingered. "Seriously?" "Absolutely. I shared a photo of us, and he remarked, 'Is that your girlfriend?' I chuckled, attempting to infuse humor into the moment. Liam remained silent. I chose not to alter my approach. I didn't alter his perception of you as my girlfriend. That remained unchanged. He never claimed you were my mother." The air turned icy. I gazed at him, my lips parting just enough to hint at a thought, yet silence enveloped me. Liam's gaze remained fixed on me. There was neither a challenge nor an invitation, only an undeniable truth. "I don't know," he continued, "but back then it didn't feel so wrong." My heart raced, a thunderous drum in my ears. My thoughts whirled in a dizzying dance. I pressed my hand against my chest, as if to anchor my heart in place, preventing it from tumbling away. "Liam," I began, but he took half a step back, as if he had just grasped the weight of the irrevocable. "Sorry," he said quickly. I can't quite grasp why those words escaped my lips. I retreated from the room, my mind hazy about the path I took. The door to his space clicked shut behind me, shattering the fragile facade of normalcy that had enveloped us. That night, I found myself unable to eat, read, or sleep. Each time I shut my eyes, Liam's figure flickered in the soft glow of the screen. His words echoed in my mind, not changing. The most agonizing realization was my lack of disgust towards him. It pained me to understand that he had chosen to love someone unworthy. What stung even deeper was the awareness that a part of me had silently guided him down that misguided path, failing to intervene. Living in such proximity to him, encroaching on his space, blurring the lines between mother and friend, I found myself enveloped in an indistinct emotion. As I lay there clutching my pillow, tears streamed down my face in silence for the first time in years. 3 days after that fraught conversation with Liam, restful sleep still eluded me. I approached my work with mechanical precision, monitoring vitals, replacing bandages, administering injections, and offering smiles at the appropriate moments. Yet beneath the surface, I was submerged in an overwhelming tide that no one else could see swelling within me. That afternoon, the chill was palpable. The sky loomed overhead, a canvas of ash and grey, devoid of any sunlight. Just as I stepped through the threshold of my home, a knock echoed through the silence, drawing my attention to the door. 3 gentle knocks, even and measured. There was no urgency, no second-guessing. I turned the handle, and there stood Robert on the other side. He donned a heavy dark blue coat, cradling a small toolbox in his hands. "Hi, Olivia," he greeted, his familiar smile lighting up his face. "As I strolled by, I noticed that your back fence seemed to be a bit loose on one hinge. If you'd like, I'm here to lend a hand in fixing it." I paused for a moment. "Well, of course. Thank you." I hardly registered it. Robert gave a nod. "I'm accustomed to it. These minor irritations can become quite bothersome if neglected for an extended period." I welcomed him inside. Liam was upstairs. I could hear footsteps shuffling back and forth overhead. As I poured coffee for Robert, Liam descended the stairs, hesitating for a moment when he spotted Robert at the kitchen table. "Hello, Robert," he greeted, ever the picture of politeness. "Hello," Liam replied, his voice steady. It was neither rude nor particularly warm. He entered the kitchen, selected an apple, and deftly peeled it with a small knife. The atmosphere shifted with each passing moment, not in a tense way, as if a confrontation loomed, but rather with a weightiness, reminiscent of an impending storm. "Are you still employed at the library?" Robert inquired politely. Liam gave a nod. The night shift continued. There weren't many customers around. I chimed in, attempting to lift the atmosphere. Liam typically returned home late. One day, I found myself oversleeping, pondering whether he had arrived yet. "Did you sleep in?" "That's peculiar." Robert chuckled, glancing my way. "You tend to be quite cautious." Liam straightened, took a deliberate bite of the apple, savoring the crunch. His gaze darted to Robert's face before returning to mine. "I'm going upstairs," Liam announced. Without pausing for a reply, he turned and strode away. His footsteps were light yet steady, fading as he passed through the door of the bedroom above. The stillness was overwhelming. Robert lifted his cup to his lips, savoring the warmth of the coffee, then set it down with a deliberate motion. Without meeting my gaze, he asked, "Olivia, are you okay?" The inquiry was straightforward, tender, yet I sensed a constriction in my throat. "What prompts your inquiry?" I said, mustering a smile. Robert gave a nonchalant shrug. "It seems that you haven't quite appeared like your usual self these past few weeks, and Liam has been in a similar state." I took a moment to stop. "Could you clarify what you mean?" Robert rested his hand on the toolbox, twisting the screwdriver with a distracted, almost absent-minded air. "Olivia, I don't really consider myself a meddlesome person. You're aware of that. Yet, I have shared a decade of my life with you. I've observed the bond you both share, a closeness that surpasses even what my wife and I experienced." Just as I was poised to interject, he lifted his hand, signaling for the go-ahead to proceed. "And that isn't incorrect. 2 people loving each other is a beautiful thing, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Yet, love can often weave a tapestry of confusion, particularly when it lacks the light of external perspectives." I gazed at him intently, my eyes lingering on his features for what felt like an eternity. Amidst the chaos, I found myself uttering just a single sentence. "Do you believe, Liam?" And Robert, hesitated before responding. He simply gazed at me, neither accusatory nor intrusive, but reflecting back a truth I was reluctant to confront. I doubt there was any sincerity in his words. I observed a young boy gazing at his mother with the same intensity I once witnessed in a man looking at the woman he adored. I observed a mother, weary from the relentless effort to maintain the semblance of normalcy. I remained silent. I was unable to. Robert rose to his feet and grasped the toolbox. "The back fence likely requires new hinges. I shall bring another one over tomorrow." I gave a slight nod. All the thoughts swirling in my mind resembled the crackling static of a radio. As he approached the door, he paused, pivoted, and uttered a final remark. "Olivia, you need not respond, yet if there's something that haunts you, it will linger on. It will merely transform its form." With a soft click, the door shut behind Robert. I settled into the chair, my palms icy to the touch. In that moment, it struck me that we were no longer just a duo. A witness had spotted the suspect. They seek not confessions, but rather the nuances, the glances, the spaces in between. The unvoiced truth is oozing through every fissure in this dwelling, and I find myself uncertain of how much longer I can contain it before it bursts forth. Whether Robert spoke to Liam that night remains a mystery, yet it was clear that Liam underwent a transformation that evening. He no longer regarded me with the same gaze he once did. He brushed past the kitchen without a gentle touch on my shoulder. He failed to extend an invitation for movie night, a ritual we had shared weekly. Liam remained quiet, yet the stillness was anything but serene. The stillness hung in the air, a prelude to the chaos that was about to unfold. As Saturday night unfolded, I had just completed the ritual of crafting my hot cocoa when the sound of Liam's footsteps echoed down the stairs. I settled onto the sofa, my legs cocooned in a blanket, poised to flick on the TV and shatter the stillness. Just then, Liam strode in, halting in the center of the living room, his gaze fixed on me. "We need to talk," he declared. His voice lacked volume, yet each word carried a certain tension. I switched off the television. "All right, regarding what?" Liam lingered for a moment, as though he expected me to grasp what was unfolding regarding Robert. My heart came to a standstill. I released a quiet exhale. "Liam, if you're pondering, I noticed the way he gazed at you," he interjected. "I noticed the way your smile lit up when he arrived at the house. Your smile has never graced me in that way, despite the years we've shared under the same roof." I set my glass aside, striving to maintain a steady tone in my voice. "Liam, do you feel a twinge of jealousy?" Indeed, Liam's words came out so swiftly that I was caught off guard. "I am, and I refuse to conceal it any longer." I gulped. Every muscle in my body coiled with tension. "Liam, you're my son," I said, gripping my voice as if it were a handbrake. "Your feelings are misguided. I understand your perspective, but we cannot proceed with that course of action." Liam let out a laugh, one that was dry and almost strangled. "Incorrect. Do you really believe I desire to experience these feelings?" His voice trembled, breaking the silence. "You were the very first person to capture my heart. You showed me the true meaning of affection, care, and loyalty. You meant the world to me. If that was incorrect, then I have been mistaken my entire existence." I sprang from the sofa, retreating as though the words were a blade poised to strike. Liam, I find myself adrift. The bond we share, it's not quite as you perceive it. It represents a departure, an absence of separation. Mom, you were mistaken in not allowing me to carve my own path, yet here I stand, unable to do so. I'm afraid I must stop you here. With determination, Liam advanced a step. His face bore a tightness, a prelude to tears that he fought to suppress. Are you aware? Whenever Robert enters the room, an urge to scream wells up inside. I observe your transformation. Gentler, gentler. Did you ever show me such tenderness? I gazed intently at Liam. In that instant, I perceived not a child. I observed a man, isolated and yearning, ensnared in a feeling from which there seemed to be no escape. I must break free, Liam, I declared. My voice was hoarse. I must distance myself from you, without delay. No, Liam nearly shouted. I don't need to escape your presence. I simply need you to recognize me, not merely as your son, but as an individual. In that moment, I found myself paralyzed by the weight of my emotion. My heart, in a twist of irony, revealed its truth, and suddenly, everything clicked into place. I grasped the reason behind Liam's words. I had, at least once, longed for someone to recognize me as a woman, rather than merely as a mother. Yet, I was an adult. I was a mother. My emotions could not dictate the boundaries of right and wrong. The room was steeped in a heavy silence, not one of anticipation, but rather the hollow stillness that lingers after a detonation. Liam gazed at me, his eyes glistening with unshed tears neither filled with anger nor desperation. He resembled a person who had experienced profound loss, stripped even of the privilege to mourn. I'm sorry, Liam said, his voice barely above a whisper. It's not that I feel this way. It's that I understand you'll never feel the same. I shook with emotion. Tears gathered in my eyes, defying my attempts to contain them. I find myself lost in confusion. I shook my head. It's not that you lack affection for me. Yet your love for me is overwhelming. It was too much to bear, the pain threatening to resurface. Liam hesitated for a moment, then chose to turn away. He inhaled deeply, as if attempting to silence a rising tide within him. Don't worry, he said, glancing back at the stairs. You'll be gone for a bit. Liam, I said, but he cut me off, refusing to face me. I just can't be in a place where every time I meet your gaze, all I see is regret. I didn't chase after him. I refrained from calling back. I remained rooted in place, allowing his footsteps to resonate against the wooden floor, each sound striking my heart like a painful reminder. The door clicked shut behind him. I remained motionless for what felt like an eternity. Eventually, I lowered myself into the very chair where Liam had been just moments before. I grasped the cup of cocoa, its warmth lingering, and brought it to my lips, yet I found myself unable to take a sip. Everything felt lodged in my throat. It was parched. My heart was hollow, as though I had just stepped away from my own existence. I was uncertain about Liam's destination. I had no idea how long he intended to remain. Yet, there was one thing I was sure of. From this day forward, I am no longer the mother I once was. It's not solely due to the loss of Liam, but rather because I allowed a boundary between us to be breached on that should have remained intact. Not through actions, but through emotions. Emotions can be incredibly destructive. 3 days after Liam departed, I started to catch whispers echoing through the hospital corridor. They weren't loud or distinct, just a series of sidelong glances and a nod that carried no explanation. A half-formed sentence lingered in the air as I stepped into the duty room. Initially, I dismissed it as a trick of my weary mind. Exhaustion weighed heavily on me, my thoughts still occupied by Liam and the vacant space where he had once rested. By noon, on Tuesday, it became clear that my imagination was not playing tricks on me. While I was getting coffee, a young nurse named Ashley, with her ponytail and keen, razor-sharp eyes, approached me. She took some sugar and, in a hushed tone, said, "Olivia, I met your son at the hospital once, didn't I?" I turned, offering a polite smile. "Yes, Liam has come to pick you up a few times." Ashley swirled her coffee with deliberate slowness, her gaze fixed intently on my hand. "I had assumed he was your boyfriend. Two of you appeared so intimate, and Liam seemed so mature." My hand lingered on the lid of the milk powder jar. My smile wavered. I attempted a gentle smile, but my lips felt parched, like they were stuck together. "No, Liam is your son. People frequently misjudge him due to his mature appearance." Ashley nodded, yet her gaze held skepticism. It was the kind of look that said, "Oh, really?" Felt as though she had already confined me to a category in her mind. After a mere greeting, she departed, yet the resonance of that exchange remained with me for an extended period. It was as if it had been etched into the atmosphere, an imprint that defied any ordinary clarification. That evening, I made my way back home, entered my bedroom, and secured the door behind me. I surveyed the space where that night had unfolded. The bed remained unchanged. The pillows remained unchanged. The soft glow of the yellow desk lamp continued to cast light upon the wall, where an old framed photo of us hung. I carefully removed the frame, examining it with intent. Liam wrapped his arms around me, his chin resting on my shoulder, and we both wore smiles that lit up the moment. At 19, he radiated a youthful joy that made this snapshot feel like the finest wed ever captured together. Yet, my perspective had shifted. His hand rested on my waist, and his chin hovered close to my neck. His eyes lacked the innocence of a child's. Not entirely. Had that always been the case? Had someone, perhaps Ashley or Robert, glimpsed something I was too afraid to confront? I set the picture aside, letting out a heavy sigh, feeling as if I had turned to stone. No one truly understood the turmoil within these walls, yet an unspoken awareness lingered, casting shadows of suspicion that could grow into something perilous. The following morning, I made my way to the nearby supermarket. As I was gathering vegetables, I encountered Emily, my neighbor from just a block over. A woman in her 60s who frequently strolled her dog by my home. She glanced my way, offered a nod, and then inquired rather suddenly, "Where's your son?" It has been some time since I last laid eyes on him. I smiled. "He's occupied with school at a friend's house." She nodded, but then uttered a chilling revelation. "The other day, I spotted him lingering at your door, peering inside, yet he chose not to ring the doorbell. He lingered for a moment, then departed. 3 days ago, at noon, I found myself frozen in place as I walked by with my dog. It seemed somewhat peculiar. He failed to notice my presence. Emily turned and departed, her farewell lingering in the air. I found myself standing in the middle of the aisle, clutching the celery, while my eyes felt as though they were being submerged in a sea of confusion. Liam turned around, refrained from entering, made no sound of a knock, simply stood there, observing. And I realized that gap is transforming into an abyss. I have no recollection of the journey home. All that drifted past the window appeared to rush by in a blur, devoid of meaning and vitality. The only thing that lingers in my mind is the coldness of Emily's words. Liam stood at the threshold, poised and contemplative. Failed to knock. Did not arrive. He was near, tantalizingly near. Yet, he was no longer stepping into my realm. And the most terrifying revelation of all was that someone had witnessed it. That evening, I found myself in solitude within the living room, cradling a cup of tea that had long lost its warmth. The refrigerator hummed softly, a gentle backdrop to the wind's whispers outside the windows. Every sound in the house pierced the silence now, as if the very walls were shedding their secrets. I emerged onto the front porch, drawing my coat tightly against the biting wind. From that vantage point, it was clear that Robert's house remained aglow. The second-story window stood ajar. The reading lamp emitted a soft, inviting yellow light. Uncertainty clouded my search, leaving me questioning what I truly sought. A person known to me. Perhaps a glimpse that the world was indeed all right. Yet, an unsettling sensation crept over me as I sensed the presence of an unseen observer. Not from Robert's residence, but rather from the other side of the street. A grey car sat idly, a mere 10 meters from my doorstep. Darkness enveloped the room, yet a figure could be discerned, faintly illuminated, seated behind the wheel. I entered the room and drew the curtains shut. My heart raced, a wild drumbeat echoing in the chaos of my thoughts. Perhaps it's merely the neighbor's vehicle. Perhaps it was merely a coincidence, yet the feeling of unease lingered within me. The following morning, I approached the mailbox situated in front of my house. Amidst the clutter of advertisements and bills, a piece of paper lay folded into thirds, devoid of any envelope. I carefully opened it. Within the confines of the page lay a solitary line, inscribed in black ballpoint pen, devoid of a signature. Some truths, the more you attempt to conceal them, the more they become apparent to others. The paper nearly slipped from my grasp, threatening to fall to the floor. My lips felt parched. My eyes flicked about with urgency, yet the street remained eerily calm, as though nothing out of the ordinary had transpired. I hurried into the house, secured the door, drew all the curtains, and collapsed into a chair. Paper rested on the table, diminutive yet alive with potential. Who can say who the author is? Ashley Robert, a figure in the hospital, or Liam? Liam had always respected my boundaries, never uttering words that ventured into inappropriate territory. Yet, if his emotions shattered, and he began to urge me to confront him, uncertainty loomed within, and I found myself questioning whether I was inflicting punishment upon myself through the workings of my imagination. In the stillness of the night, I found myself dreaming of Liam, positioned silently before my window. He neither knocked nor uttered a word. Instead, he simply gazed at me from the darkness outside, his face illuminated by the pale glow of the moonlight. I envisioned Robert stepping through the door, entering my home unannounced. Without uttering a word, he approached the weathered photo frame resting on the dresser, flipped it over so that it lay face down on the table, revealing an image of me in slumber. Liam stood beside me, his gaze fixed on me as I realized. I woke up. My nightgown was drenched in sweat. The clock read 3:14 a.m. I flicked on the light, and what I saw sent a chill racing through my veins. The photo frame I had tucked away just yesterday now rested on the table, face up, as if summoned from a dream. I approached it, my heart racing with anticipation. My thoughts whirled with endless possibilities. Had I overlooked it? Was it a product of my dreams, or did an intruder slip through the shadows? The front door remained securely locked, and there was no indication of any disruption. Yet, I could no longer dismiss the unsettling sensation that lingered within me. There was an observer, lingering in the shadows of my existence, aware of every detail. The initial winter rain arrived on a Friday evening. Just as I felt drained, it began to pour. The rain pounded relentlessly against the glass, reminiscent of someone persistently knocking. I found myself nestled on the sofa, the room cloaked in darkness, with only the faint glow of the TV casting shadows on the wall. A documentary unfolded quietly in the background. The narrator's voice flowed with a calm, soothing rhythm. I let my eyelids fall shut, and then came a gentle knock. 3 times, soft and measured. The sound echoed in my mind, a persistent knock that shattered the illusion of slumber. I approached the door, each step heavy with anticipation, my heart racing in my chest. Through the narrow opening of the curtains, I caught sight of a figure I recognized, a black coat draped over a familiar frame, old shoes squelching softly, dark hair now slicked down from the rain. It was Liam. I pushed the door open. He stood there, devoid of an umbrella, silent. Rain streaked his face, and his eyes were red, suggesting either tears or the fatigue of a long journey. I swung the door open and stepped back into the room. He entered, coat still on, silence hanging between us, his gaze fixed on me for what felt like an eternity. "I didn't know I should come," he murmured quietly. Yet, I found myself at a loss for where to turn next. I nodded, a silent acknowledgement of the truth I wished to escape. Liam removed his coat and draped it over a chair. Damp shirt clung to his skin, sending a chill through him. "You should take a shower first," I suggested. "You might end up catching a cold." He cast a brief glance my way and gave a nod. Then he stepped into the bathroom. The sound of water echoed in the air, quickening my pulse inexplicably. A mere 10 minutes passed before Liam appeared, his hair damp, clad in the familiar nightgown I had left behind. He met my gaze as I remained seated in the chair, and in that moment, for the first time in weeks, we occupied the same space, unencumbered by anything that had come before. "I miss you, Mom," Liam said. I remained silent. I couldn't bring myself to respond. If I were to say you too, I feared that something would shatter. I made an effort to keep my distance. I refrained from calling, from dwelling on thoughts of you. Liam paused, swallowing hard. His voice was hoarse. I penned letters. Countless. I chose not to send them. Instead, I burned them all. My heart tightened. "What have you penned?" I inquired, uncertain if I was truly prepared for the answer. Liam met my gaze, his eyes gleaming, not with anticipation, but because the moment had arrived. "I penned that had you not been my mother, I would have embraced you for an eternity. I kissed you, holding you close as my lover." I remained silent, still. The rain filled the house with its sound, and the words hung in the air like sharp knives. Liam stepped forward, a weight of understanding pressing down on him. He was acutely aware of the wrongness of it all. He knew. Yet, emotions defy reason. They exist solely in their fervor. I quaked, a mix of trepidation and the clarity of his every utterance resonating within me. And that was the most terrifying moment. Liam settled beside me, maintaining a deliberate distance, merely a couple of inches apart. I want to make a move towards you. I vow to you. Yet, I ask, just this once, see me as an individual, not merely as your son. I turned away and took the leap I had been too afraid to take for months. I gazed into Liam's eyes, meeting his gaze head-on, refusing to look away or feign ignorance. In that moment, I perceived the loneliness, the pain, the longing, the guilt an entire soul stifled and constrained by the expectations of his parent. I recognized it all, and yet I felt no hatred toward him. The precise moment I extended my hand eludes my memory. Perhaps it was instinctual, a reflex triggered by the sight of someone in pieces. All I know is that my hand rested gently on Liam's cheek, soft and trembling, while his eyes remained closed. There was nothing harsh or demanding, just a warm, silent touch that lingered. Liam tilted his head toward my hand, his lips pressed together, his chin quivering slightly. He murmured, "Just don't pull away." I refrained from doing so, fully aware that stepping back would be the right choice, yet it would also shatter the hearts of both individuals present. I chose not to kiss him. He didn't kiss me, yet we lingered in that moment, mere inches apart, my hand resting on his cheek, my gaze fixated on the distance between us. That distance felt perilous now. Liam softly grasped my wrist, neither tugging nor pushing, simply holding on. A gesture so delicate, yet it marked the point of no return. I released my hold. Liam's eyes fluttered open and met mine, revealing a depth that had shifted away from the warmth of maternal affection. Love, in its entirety, is flawed. Yet, it remains impossible to conceal. I rose to my feet. He followed suit. We refrained from embracing. We refrained from kissing. Yet the essence of our encounter lay not in the physical act itself, but in the mutual comprehension of what transpired, a silent agreement that needed no words of protest. Liam stepped into his room, a space that had lingered in silence for days. I returned to the bedroom, the door firmly shut. The light remained unlit, casting shadows in the stillness. The room enveloped in darkness. Yet, my vision pierced through the void. I perceived it distinctly. I had crossed a threshold, not physically, but mentally, and that was the point of no return for me. I settled onto the bed, clutching my pillow, my eyes wide in the enveloping darkness. Tears did not fall. Fear did not grip me. I just lost Olivia earlier. No one must discover what transpired tonight. No one can hold me accountable. No one can accuse me of being wrong. Yet deep down, I acknowledge my faults, and I find myself hesitant to correct them. The following morning dawned crisp and bright. The absence of rain and storm left the house resonating with the unspoken. I rose with the dawn. I brewed coffee. My hands had steadied, yet I felt a disconnection from them. Each motion was deliberate, fluid, as if my body operated independently of my thoughts. Just as I set the cup down on the table, Liam descended the stairs. He donned a gray sweater, his hair a bit tousled, his face now devoid of the panic that had marked the previous night. He settled down across from me. We exchanged glances in silence, each of us seemingly poised for the other to break the stillness, yet fully aware that whatever words were spoken would inevitably sting. I took the initiative to break the silence. You should take a break for a bit, I suggested. Liam responded with a quick nod, acknowledging my words. Why not? No blame, merely an acknowledgement. That was the final thing I anticipated, and the most devastating. Il locat somewhere to stay, Liam declared. There are few vacant rooms at school. I was curious to inquire, do you have any money? I wish to express, be mindful while you eat. I wished to express, reach out when you require my presence. Yet it all felt so insincere, reminiscent of the words a perfect mother might utter. Yet that nurturing figure had ceased to be me since the previous night. I merely inclined my head in acknowledgement. Liam's gaze lingered on me, stretching the moment into something palpable. In that gaze, countless unvoiced sentiments lingered, yet he selected just a single word. I apologize. I gently shook my head, a subtle gesture of disbelief. I also regret what Liam inquired about. I inhaled deeply, for allowing me to navigate a world that felt so solitary, with only you by my side. Liam offered a gentle, wistful smile. You were everything to me. That is the peril. Once more, silence enveloped the scene. I rose from my seat and ascended the stairs. Retrieve an envelope from the drawer. Place on the table. Within these confines lies a sum of money, sufficient for several weeks. If you require anything further, please feel free to inform me. Liam refrains from making contact with the envelope. He gazes at it as if it were an unfamiliar face. For how long will we remain silent? He inquires, his voice revealing a hint of vulnerability for the first time. Until I can gaze upon you, without yearning for the love I crave from you. Liam shuts his eyes, tightens his lips, and gives a nod for the third time this morning. The nod carries the weight of a concluding chapter. He gathers his things with haste, tossing in a handful of clothes, his laptop and phone, leaving behind picture frames and books without a second thought. I am aware, for I caught a glimpse through the door as he stepped into his former room. Just before stepping out, Liam casts a final glance my way. Are you going to be all right? He inquires. I acknowledge with a nod. What about me? Liam offers a subtle smile. Im uncertain, but I will make an effort to embrace a more ordinary existence. I swung the door wide, inviting him in. There are no embraces, no physical contact. We separated as two souls who had once cherished one another, fully aware that any further closeness would only lead to ruin. With a soft click, the door shut behind Liam. I secured it tightly. The light remained unlit. Did not take a seat. I lingered in the hallway, where my son's footsteps once resonated, a place that held the tranquility of bygone days. At that moment, it was merely a hallway void of life, steeped in silence and devoid of any passerby. I returned to my room and removed the mirror from the wall. Flipped it around. On my birthday, Liam penned a line when he was just 16. I will forever stand by your side, Mom. No, Danieler, how the years pass. No, Danieler, how we change. We remain two souls navigating this little world together. I settled into my seat, cradling the mirror against my chest. My palms tightened into fists, and my eyes grew wide with intensity. Not one tear was shed. In a confined space where two individuals draw too near, it becomes evident that one must withdraw. It had been 3 weeks since Liam's departure. I exist as a mere shadow, commuting to work and returning home. Quietude. Rieterata. No further inquiries were made. Liam was not brought up by anyone. The house lay in an unsettling silence, as though his absence had settled into the fabric of everyday life. Neither did I reach out to Liam, nor did he reach out to me. I found myself in the dark about his whereabouts, his meals, and whether he was unwell. Several times I found myself poised before the phone, nearly completing the message, "Are you okay?" Then it was erased, not from a place of pride, but rather from a deep-seated fear that his rejection would leave me unable to rein in my emotions. As I folded laundry on a Saturday afternoon, the phone suddenly rang. Unidentified caller. I hadn't intended to respond, yet my intuition urged me, and it proved to be accurate. An urgent woman's voice intertwined with the blaring of a car horn. "Are you the mother of Liam Thomas? I work as a nurse at Northview Hospital. Your presence is urgently required here." I exited the house with the urgency of someone embarking on a run. As I sped down the road, my heart raced alongside the engine, my palms slick with sweat. A cascade of scenarios surged through my mind. Tragedy, despair, violence, all culminating in a haunting inquiry. Should this be our final moment, will I have the chance to express my love for you? Upon my arrival, I found Liam in a stable condition. I found myself ushered into the waiting room. A doctor emerged, a youthful, polished figure, exuding professionalism. He expressed that he is profoundly dehydrated, deeply drained from stress and malnutrition. He has likely been experiencing incontinence for several days now. I am myself perplexed. "Could you clarify what you mean?" A small motel in the western part of the city was where he was discovered. A staff member discovered him unconscious in his room, surrounded by 3 packs of uncooked instant noodles and a scattering of notes on the table. I was utterly astonished. "Any notes?" The doctor regarded me intently for what felt like an eternity. He took a moment before responding. "There are sheets bearing your name, filled with a few lines of emotion, all urgent and tormenting." I can't tell if he's composing a letter or lost in thought. As I stepped into Liam's room, my heart raced fiercely, drowning out all sounds except for the rhythm of my own breath. He lay there with an IV, eyes shut, thinner and paler, and in that fleeting moment, Liam ceased to be the man striving to prove anything. He was the little one I had once lulled into slumber. I settled beside the bed. I placed my hand atop his. Though his eyes remained closed, his fingers tightened around mine, a subtle gesture that suggested he knew who I was. Silent tears streamed down my face, flowing through my hands as I succumbed to the overwhelming wave of emotion. There are no justifications, no clear distinctions between right and wrong. Only a mother who understands that, regardless of the circumstances, her child is unraveling and requires her support. I spent the entire night with Liam. I perused the doctor's notes, those ink-stained fragments of paper, the recurring phrases. My name, the carefully chosen words. Would my absence bring you relief? If this is indeed a transgression, what compels you to love me so deeply still? I made an effort to suppress my love, yet emotions linger far longer than logic ever could. I pressed my palm against my forehead. The world whirled around. I was more certain than I had ever been. Leaving him was not an option for me. Yet, if I continued down this path, I would risk losing my very essence. The following morning, as Liam stirred awake, Our gazes locked for a fleeting instant before he was overtaken by tears. Silence enveloped him, a hollow echo resonating within, stripped of words and dignity. In my shattered state, I finally uttered the words I had long kept hidden. I will assist you, but not in the same way I once did. Seeking therapy could be beneficial for you. I shall accompany you from afar. I will remain present, yet I can no longer exist within your confined reality, for I must also embrace my own life. Liam hesitated before nodding. He gazed at me intently, his eyes lingering on mine for what felt like an eternity. He leaned in and whispered, "I accept as long as you still call me Liam." A month after the hospital incident, Liam settled into the school dormitory. I did not make daily visits to him. I opted to send him a small package every week instead. The book enhances a selection of his favorite foods. Within every package, I included a handwritten note. Mom may not be present, yet her essence lingers on. Liam remained silent about the notes, yet I was certain he had read them. During our last call, he mentioned, "I still keep every single one, even if it hurts a little." A smile crept onto my face. He returned the smile. After months of silence, our conversation flowed effortlessly for the first time. I returned to my job, yet I felt transformed, as if I had shed my former self. I began my early morning walks simply to savor the air around me. I began private therapy with a therapist named Clarice. From our very first session, she refrained from asking me anything, simply stating, "When you're ready, I'll be here." It wasn't until the third session that I found the courage to express, "I'm not sure. I'm a good mother. I'm not certain I'm the right woman," she admitted, a smile gentle and free of judgment. There's no need to make a choice between the two. One must embrace honesty within oneself and acknowledge their own responsibilities. That marked the initial stride toward viewing myself without the burden of self-hatred. Liam embarked on a journey of private therapy alongside a student support group. He shared little about the content, yet he did send me a text once. Today, I came to understand that love doesn't always require tending. At times, to truly love someone means understanding the importance of not possessing them. I preserved that message, revisiting it repeatedly, and I grasped that he was maturing for the first time, not nestled within my mother's embrace, but beyond it. On a late afternoon, as I sifted through my bookshelf, I stumbled upon an old notebook filled with the tender notes I had penned for Liam during his infancy. The final page contained a line I penned during Liam's 7th grade year, a time when he faced bullying for his close bond with his mother. "Should the world perceive you as unique, I will stand as your foremost protector and be the final one to urge you into maturity." I set my pen aside, inscribing a note beneath the line. "However, I've come to realize that if I continue to shield you, you'll never discover how to rise after a fall." That evening, Liam sent me a selfie. He stood in his new room, contemplating the phrase, "I don't have much, but there is light in the morning. That's enough to start over." I gazed at the photograph, lost in its depths for what felt like an eternity. In the sunlight, Liam's face, while still touched by sadness, appeared less rigid. His eyes sparkled with a newfound light, no longer shrouded in darkness. I replied, "Begin anew, but don't wipe the slate clean. The mistakes you made are part of your journey towards growth. The future remains uncertain for us. There might be more days filled with silence, more dialogues left incomplete. Yet, one truth remains clear: we did not select the wrong person to love. We simply chose an incorrect path to hold on to him." If maturity is about learning to love without the sting of pain, then it seems we've both finally embarked on that journey. I found myself seated on the familiar bench in the park by the hospital, a spot where Liam and I had shared countless moments. Before me lay a small lake, its surface softly undulating, mirroring the warm glow of the late afternoon sun. No background music, no inner thoughts, just my presence, breathing steadily and no longer fleeing. I had lost so much. Lost the vision of an ideal mother. I have relinquished the notion that love, when genuine, guarantees fidelity. The fantasy that love alone could bind someone to me has faded. Yet, in this process, I have preserved something far more significant. I still possessed myself, though not entirely intact and marked by numerous fractures. Yet, it was genuine. My story lacked a sweet resolution. There was no reassuring sense of everything being all right. No heartwarming scene of mother and child coming back as if nothing had transpired. We decided to embrace our love from a measured distance. Close enough to nurture our bond, yet far enough to preserve our individuality. So, that's our best effort. But, for those of you on the outside, the audience who has journeyed this far, what are your thoughts? Do you believe Olivia is teetering on the edge? Or is she simply a mother grappling with profound loneliness in a world devoid of love? Do you believe Liam is a fractured child in need of assistance? Or a solitary man expressing love in an inappropriate manner? But honestly, do you believe this relationship is fundamentally flawed? Or is it merely a tragic situation where no one genuinely wishes to be in the wrong? Yet emotions, instincts, and circumstances drive everything past the breaking point? Share your response. There is no definitive answer. There is only the truth you decide to embrace. To you, the listeners who have embraced this tale with open hearts, I offer my deepest gratitude. Perhaps your experiences have granted you the wisdom to recognize that in this world, not everything exists in stark contrasts. Some relationships defy definition. Some emotions are a blend of beauty and conflict. There are instances when we must decide not between right and wrong, but between our desires and the repercussions that follow. I appreciate your presence not just through the conclusion of this tale, but for engaging with the empathy of a parent, a guardian, or anyone who once walked the path of childhood. In recognizing that what is right often lies not in the action itself, but in the intention behind it, you grasp a profound truth. You understand that wrongs frequently arise from a loneliness that remains unspoken. You have experienced love, endured loss, and learned the art of letting go, all while perhaps clinging to something you know is not meant to last. It is this deep empathy that positions you as the most discerning audience for this narrative. When a story resonates deeply, prompting reflection, or leaving you in quiet contemplation after the final line, it signifies a genuine connection forged through shared human experience. I appreciate your willingness to engage with it. If this narrative lingers in your thoughts for a while longer, it would be the most meaningful gift I could hope for.